Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. We are in Jeremiah chapter 31, and we're receiving some hard prophecies, uh, some the future for Israel. We can say God's elect, God's chosen people, and in this context, it is the descendants of Abraham, whom God created. And this is important to understand why Israel's part in God's plan is so important. You remember, it starts with Abraham, God appearing to Abraham saying, I am going to bring forth from your body a seed that will become a nation that will bless the entire world. All the families of the earth will be blessed in you. So you start with that promise. And of course, the bigger plot was to establish the bloodline for Jesus to come as the sacrificial lamb for the sins of the world. Okay, so now God starts with Abraham, whose wife Sarah was barren. So it was a miraculous birth, in that God healed Sarah and he caused her to get pregnant and have Isaac. So that's why Israel is important to God and will always hold that a place in God's plan. Now, the people of Israel have been so rebellious against God that at this time now, it is put like this. At this time now, God is um, uh, judging their incredible wickedness. Okay, so that's why we have that. This is where we are. So the prophecies, one is that God is going to restore Israel. God is going to restore Israel. They're going to have a place in the millennial reign of Jesus Christ. Going to have a place throughout, I think, excuse me, all eternity. And this is the prophecies that we're seeing here. That God is going to restore them back to the land. God is going to give the land that God promised. He's the creator of everything, the universe, the earth, and everything. He said, I'm giving Israel this land. Now, just as a sidebar note, that hasn't happened yet. So regardless of what you think is going on in the Middle East right now, the fulfillment of God's prophecy is nowhere in sight in this respect. I'm not even sure that the people who occupy the land are the physical descendants of Abraham. I'm not denying it or confirming it. I'm just merely raising the question. And it doesn't matter, because when God sees fit, He is going to restore the people to that land. He is going to secure the land, protect the land, drive whoever out that's in it that doesn't need to be in there. So that's all going to be God doing that. Now, also in the meantime, because of Israel's wickedness, they are being judged. So in chapter 30, we talked about Jacob's trouble, this terrible time that Israel would be severely um, ravaged by the nations of the earth. Okay, and there's the two parts of that. God is gathering them to battle, but also God is judging Israel. So in the last video, we looked at one near fulfillment, which when Jesus came and Herod ordered the execution of all of the babies from 2 years old and under. And we see the fulfillment of the prophecy that that great weeping was heard throughout Rachel. Rachel weeping for her children, and I'm going to go through it again. Rachel weeping for her children, and she's not comforted because they are no more. Well, that prophecy was fulfilled when Jesus was born, but it is also a prophecy that will have different layers to it. So, for example, you could probably look at it further during the time of Jacob's trouble. And he talks about the women being raped, pregnant women being slaughtered, like literally the gruesomeness of it. There pregnant women being dashed in their stomachs and stuff. So that is yet to be fulfilled. All right, so let's get back into it. All right. So Jeremiah chapter 31, and let me pick up a verse 15. I'm going to read verse 15 again. And it says, "This is what the Lord says: A voice was heard in Ramah, a lament with bitter weeping. Rachel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted for her children because they are no more." So again, this is a prophecy that stretches beyond the present. So in other words, during the time of Jeremiah here, you're going to see this. They're going to experience this hardship here. Women being raped, starvation. But then you also see this in the time of Jesus, one of the fulfillments of it, when Jesus was born and Herod ordered the execution of all the children around Bethlehem from 2 years old and under. And I think there's even yet fulfillment, we could say, in the tribulation period. Verse 16, "This is what the Lord says: Keep your voice from weeping and your eyes from tears, for the reward for your work will come. This is the Lord's declaration, and your children will return from the enemy's land." Again, another prophecy. Now, this is important here too, I think, because look at this here. God promising that Israel will return from the enemy's land. The Jews today, the majority of the Jews are still scattered throughout the world. The Jews right now, so the descendants of Abraham are scattered throughout the earth. So even now, those who occupy the land of Jerusalem, and if they are the descendants of Abraham, they are but a fraction. And so the promise here is God is going to bring them from all around the world. Okay, so verse 17, "There is hope for your future. This is the Lord's declaration, and your children will return to their own territory." So again, he's promising Israel will occupy the land, but it won't be because of their own works. It'll be God doing this. So what's going on right now is not a fulfillment of God's prophecy. Verse 18, "I have heard Ephraim moaning. You disciplined me, and I have been disciplined. Like an untrained calf, restore me, and I will return. For you, Lord, are my God. After I returned, I repented. After I was instructed, I struck my thigh in grief. I was ashamed and humiliated because I bore the disgrace of my youth. Isn't Ephraim a precious son to me and a delightful child? Whenever I speak against him, I certainly still think about him. Therefore, my inner being yearned for him, and I would truly have compassion on him. This is the Lord's declaration." So again, Ephraim was, hold on, let me see something here, because this I think is also important here. Okay, here we go. Lost my thought here. All right, Ephraim, it's important because Ephraim was, remember, one of the sons of Joseph. Now, the kind of fast history of that, you remember that Joseph was sold into Egypt by his brothers. Now, again, like I say, this is a short version of it, but the sons of Jacob were ruthless. They were ruthless people, and they were jealous of Joseph because um, Jacob being older and Joseph being young. Okay, he probably favored Joseph more, so his older brothers were jealous. So they sold him. They were going to murder him, but then they said, "Okay, well, we'll sell him, make some money off of him." Not knowing, one, it was God's plan, but not knowing that, two, they would be severely, really humiliated by Joseph, because Joseph got to give Joseph a dream, and he was probably a teenager at the time, had given him a dream that he would rule over them, and that made it even more matter. That's why they wanted to kill him. But then, like I say, they decided, well, we'll just sell him. So they sold him into uh, um, Egypt and forgot about him, truthfully. And when I say forgot about him, I didn't say that they never stopped thinking about him. What they did in terms of selling their brother into Egypt always were on their thoughts. But they probably thought he was dead. They probably just, again, didn't realize he was just a slave somewhere, maybe alive or dead. But certainly did not imagine he would be ruler of Egypt, second to Pharaoh. Well, famine hits, which is why God sent Joseph to Egypt. He becomes ruler. They run into him. Oops, right? Now, during the time of, Joseph's time, he was a slave. He was a servant and a slave. And then he ended up being the ruler, because he was able to interpret the dreams, save the nation of Egypt. But during that time, he gets married, has two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. So Ephraim is one of the sons. Later, the reason why this is important, because I'm trying to think which son it was here, that uh, Joseph, when he visits Jacob, Jacob, when he finally goes to Egypt, he makes a prophecy that says that your sons now will be named among the 12 sons of Jacob. So one of the sons was removed, and I'm trying to think if was it the oldest son. And then the Levi tribe were always to be priests. So as far as inheritance were concerned, they was never listed for the inheritance. But Manasseh and Ephraim were added to the number of the 12 tribes of Israel. So this is why, and so as a result, because of their wickedness too, then they also bore the wrath as well. So that's who Ephraim is. Okay, verse 21. He says, set up road markers for yourself, establish signposts, keep the highway in mind, the way you have traveled. Return, virgin Israel, return to these cities of yours. How long will you turn here and there, faithless daughter? For the Lord creates something new in the land. A female will shelter a man. Now, if you want to look at today's wicked society today, yes, we see a lot of that going on, but I do digress. It says, verse 23 again, this is what the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, says. When I restore their fortunes, they will once again speak this word in the land of Judah and in its cities. May the Lord bless you, righteous settlement, holy mountain. Now, again, we see God's repeated promise, okay? Repeated promise of bringing Israel back into the land. Now, when we look at it today, this is not in any kind of way a fulfillment. Now, I say this because whenever you look at prophecy, it is important that you, to me, look at details. And that's how you can judge when something is fulfilled or not. So, for example, in the book of Matthew, when it talks about, and Jesus says this, Matthew 24, he says, when you hear of wars and rumors of wars and earthquakes and famines. Now, because people don't read, and when I read, and I have to read over and over and over again, I have to constantly read it because I'll admit I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, as they say, so I have to read it over and over. But I always, when I read it, I want to pay attention to the details. Now, people will say today, and I've heard it all of my adult life, that we're in last days. And here's the reason why they say that is because of the wars that we're having, the wars, the earthquakes, and even now with the climate change, people are really saying, we're upon the end times. Now, of course, I don't know. Jesus can come back any day, right? Because as sovereign, he can come back whenever he wants. He can wrap up whatever he wants to wrap up and do whatever he wants to do as he pleases. And so my point is, I don't know when Jesus is coming back. However, Jesus can come back, or what we may call the end of the world could happen really another 100 years if God so chooses. We don't know, right? The point is, we don't know. But if you say that the end days because of the wars and the rumors of the wars, then go back and look at what Jesus actually said about the wars and the rumors of the wars. That he actually said it was the beginning of sorrow, not the end. So that's my point. We have to look at details when you're reading. God, he gives us the information that he wants us to have. So notice again, so he says here, this is what the Lord of hosts says, when I restore the fortunes, they will once again speak this word in the land of Judah. Now, my point is, so if you want to say that 1947 was a fulfillment of prophecy, is Israel doing this? The answer is no. In fact, Israel today is one of the most progressive states. You see a lot of conservative Christians, conservative Republicans always talk about woke liberals and woke people, but they dare don't speak against Israel, who's more woke and more liberal and more progressive than America. Okay? Now, so my point is that this is not, they're coming back to the land in 1947 wasn't a fulfillment of any kind of Bible prophecy. So verse 24 says, Judah and all its cities will live together, also farmers and those who move with the flocks, for I satisfy the thirsty person and feed all those who are weak. He said, at this I woke and looked around. My sleep had been most pleasant to me. Let's see here. All right, let me read. So this was a dream that God had given him. So verse 27, the days are coming. This is the Lord's declaration, when I will sow the house of Israel and the house of Judah with the seed of man and the seed of beast, just as I watch over them to uproot and to tear down, to demolish and to destroy, and to cause disaster, so will I be attentive to build and plant them, says the Lord. In those days, it will never again be said, the fathers have eaten sour grapes, and their children's teeth are set on the edge. Rather, each will die for his own wrongdoing. Anyone who eats sour grapes, his own teeth will be set on edge. So again, notice, these prophecies are just so important. And for what God's plan is for Israel, what he has for Israel. And again, they are yet to be established or fulfilled. All right, so we'll pick it up in the next study. And don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought, a comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. I'll see you in the next study.